Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Latifah Rahmadaniah Putri, and in this video we will try to discuss and answer the question in the passage 2. And the first step that we should do is listen to the audio.
Now listen to part of a talk in a biology class.
All right, now a common misconception about global climate change, commonly referred to as global warming, is that if we experience an unusually hot day in this area alone, then it's evidence of climate change. I just want to take a second to make it clear that changes in local weather is a weather-related event, not a climate-related one. Climate refers to the long-term, predictable atmospheric conditions of a specific area, not the conditions of a day or even a week for that matter. Weather refers to the conditions of the atmosphere during a short period of time. Weather forecasts are usually made in 48-hour cycles and are more concerned with daily and hourly predictions. Yes, Henry?
So you're saying that climate has more to do with seasonal changes? For example, like the difference between summer and winter in New York, while weather is more about the conditions outside today or tomorrow.
That's right, Henry. So now that we have established exactly what we mean by climate, let me ask you about the causes of climate change. I mentioned them in the last class.
Well, we started by talking about the Industrial Revolution, which began in the early 1800s, and that's when most of society started burning fossil fuels like oil and coal. And those fuels release a bunch of carbon dioxide into the air, and when there's more carbon dioxide in the air, more of the sun's energy gets trapped in the atmosphere, so the climate of the Earth warms.
Perfect, Jessica. Maybe I should have you teach the class. So yes, most of us know about the harmful effects of the burning of fossil fuels and the release of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But what causes climate change? There are two more. Henry?
I know one is solar intensity, and the other, I think, has something to do with volcanoes? Sorry, I can't remember exactly.
Well, like you said, the intensity of the sun does change, believe it or not. Changes in the amount of heat from the sun has been proposed as one explanation for past climate events. And the third you're thinking of is volcanic eruptions.
That's right. I remember now. The gases released during an eruption can change the climate over a period of a few years. But this type of climate change is usually just short term, right?
Right. Now, let's get back to fossil fuels. As Jessica mentioned, increased amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are usually released through the burning of fossil fuels. Make no mistake, what may sometimes be reported in the media as debatable, there is no debate among scientists as to whether or not climate change is due to human activity. True, the strength of the sun's rays and the eruption of volcanoes can play a role, but there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that human activity, particularly the burning of fossil fuels, is to blame for the rise in global temperatures. And we are now starting to see the tremendous impact global warming is having on our environment. Between 2002 and 2006, Greenland lost almost 200 kilometers worth of glaciers. And as the glaciers melt around the globe, the sea levels rise, which threatens the coastal life of humans and the marine life of aquatic species. Now, many organisms on land are also being affected by the changes in climate. Temperature and rainfall play key roles in determining the geographic distribution of plants and animals. For example, researchers have shown that 385 plant species in England are flowering 5 days sooner than usual. In addition, insect species that pollinate and rely on these flowers are now arriving sooner than in previous decades. This mismatched timing of plants and insects could result in the loss of both species in the area. Small changes in the atmosphere have already made a big impact on species that rely on specific weather conditions. Most think of polar bears and their disappearing homeland of snow and ice. But this is just one of the many organisms threatened by global climate change, and that includes us humans.
And after hearing the audio, we will try to answer and try to find the reason why we chose that option as an answer. And the first step is let's try to answer the question. Let's take a look to the first question. The first question is, what is the professor mainly discussing? A. The pros and cons of climate change, the causes and effects of climate change, how to prevent climate change, and D. What happens when we burn fossil fuels? The answer for this question is B. The reason why is because in the beginning of the paragraph, after hearing the audio, we will try to answer and try to find the reason why we choose that option as an answer. And the first step that we should do is answer the question. And let's take a look to the first question. The first question is, what is the professor mainly discussing? A. The pros and cons of climate change, the causes and effect of climate change, C. How to prevent climate change, and D. What happens when we burn fossil fuels? The answer for this question is B. The reason why is because in that talk, in the beginning of the talk, the speaker said about a common misconception about global climate change. In the next paragraph, they explain how the cause and effect caused by climate change. The sentence was proved in the middle of the talk when the speaker said, "Let me ask you about the causes of climate change. I mentioned them in the last class." Then, after that, the talk explained the effect arising from climate change, so that the reason why the answer to this question is B. A is wrong because in the talk, there is no sentence that discusses the pros of the climate change. C is wrong because in the talk, there was no discussion on how to prevent climate change. And the last is D is wrong because it is not related to the conversation on the talk. And the next question is the second question. The question is, the professor discusses several causes and effects of climate change. Indicate which information matches a cause or effect. This question is worth 2 points. And the first one is volcanic eruption. It is a cause. And the second one is changes in rainfall, and it is the effect. The third one is burning fossil fuels, and this is a cause. And the last is temperature changes, and it is the effect. And the next question is, what is the difference between weather and climate? Select 2. A. Weather refers to condition in the atmosphere over a long period of time. B. Climate refers to the forecast over a 48-hour period. C. Weather is more concerned with daily or hourly prediction. And D. Climate refers to predictable long-term atmosphere condition. The answer for this question is C and D. Because in that talk, they said about the difference between weather and climate. In that talk, they said climate refers to the long-term predictable atmospheric condition of a specific area, not the condition of a day or even a week for the matter. Weather refers to the condition of the atmosphere during a short period of time. Weather forecasts are usually made in 48 hours cycle and are more concerned with daily and hourly prediction. So, the correct answer is C and D. A and B are wrong because the statement doesn't match with what the speaker said. And the next question is, according to the lecture, what is an example of the effect of climate change? A. Polar bears have taken over all the glaciers. B. Insects don't know when to pollinate flower. C. A large amount of flowers are blooming sooner than usual. And D. Many animals are searching for new homes. For this question, the answer is C, because in that talk, they mentioned that temperature and rainfall play key role in determining the geographic distribution of plant and animal. For example, researchers have shown that 38 plant species in England are flowering 5 days sooner than usual. So the correct answer is C. Option A and B are presented very similar to fact, but are actually misinformation that aims to break our focus. While the answer D is wrong because the statement was not discussed in the talks. The last question is, what is the professor implying when she says this? The professor said that, "Perfect, Jessica, maybe I should have you teach the class." It refers more to a sentence of praise where the professor is amazed at Jessica's knowledge. So the answer is C, because it refers to a sentence when the professor praised and amazed to Jessica. So the answer A, B, and D are wrong because the statement is more directed to the negative, even though the meaning of the professor's statement is to refer to the positive. And thank you, and that's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.